Thunder roared as my daughter Claire hurled my suitcase into the St. Augustine mud, her voice a venomous blade. "You're a worthless leech, Mom. Disappear." My life's scrap socks, a torn sweater bled into the filth of her perfect driveway. Every scar I bore for her, every sacrifice, burned to ash in my chest. Yet through the rage and rain, I gripped one searing truth. She never checked the name on that $10 million ticket. The rain still clung to my skin as I stood there, the echo of Claire's venomous words fading into the St. Augustine night. But before that storm tore my world apart, our life was different, simpler, tethered by a fragile thread of hope. I'm Maggie Thompson, 62, a widow scraping by in a 2-bedroom cottage off Aon Ampere, where the ocean's hum was my only constant. For years I worked part-time at the local library, shelving books to cover Claire's bills. My daughter, 38, a single mom with 2 boys, leaned on me like a crutch. I didn't mind. I sold my mother's pearl necklace to pay her overdue rent, gave up dreams of a Key West retirement to watch her kids. "You're my anchor, Mom," Claire used to say, her eyes soft after I'd braid her hair for another job interview. But those words soured over time, replaced by her sighs and eye rolls when I asked her to pitch in. Every Friday, we'd walk 3 blocks to Tom's Corner Store, a cramped shop smelling of coffee and motor oil. It was our ritual buying lottery tickets, $2 each, like tossing pennies into a wishing well. "Imagine, Mom." Claire would grin, waving her ticket like a flag. $10 million, no more scraping by. I'd laugh, picturing a porch swing overlooking the Atlantic. We'd sit at our chipped kitchen table, picking numbers, hers always the boys' birthdays, mine random, teasing fate. If I win, we split it. She'd promise, her voice warm. I believed her. God help me, I did. Even when she left dishes piled in the sink or snapped at her boys for spilling juice. I made excuses. She's stressed. She's trying. But deep down, I felt the cracks forming, like sand slipping through my fingers. Claire was drifting, and I was too busy holding her world together to notice. The memory of those Friday nights at Tom's Corner Store lingered like the salty St. Augustine breeze, but that warmth was gone now, replaced by a chill that wasn't just from the storm. Claire, my daughter, had always been a restless soul, chasing dreams bigger than our little cottage could hold. But when the local news flickered on our old television, announcing a $10 million lottery ticket sold at Tom's, something in her shifted. It wasn't joy I saw in her eyes that night, but a glint of something sharper: greed, maybe, or ambition finally unleashed. She sat on the couch, clutching her phone, her fingers trembling as she scrolled. "Did you buy a ticket this week, Mom?" she asked, her voice too casual, like she was hiding something. I nodded, stirring my tea. "Yeah, Monday, with the groceries." "Why?" She shrugged, her eyes darting away. "Just wondering." But the way she avoided my gaze, the way her leg bounced under the table, told me more than her words ever could. The next morning, I went to check the ticket, pinned to the fridge under that star-shaped magnet we'd bought at a beachside flea market. My heart sank. The ticket was gone. Just the magnet remained, its chipped edges mocking me. I tore through the kitchen, opening drawers, lifting cushions, even digging through the trash can, my hands shaking with a dread I couldn't name. "Claire," I called, keeping my voice steady. "Have you seen the ticket?" She was in her room, door half closed, her voice muffled. "No, Mom. Maybe you misplaced it." "Misplaced it?" I'd pinned it right there, next to the grocery list. I stood frozen, staring at the empty fridge, my pulse hammering. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe my daughter, the girl I'd rocked through fevers and heartbreak, wouldn't lie to me. But the doubt crept in, cold and heavy, settling in my bones. Days later, Claire's behavior changed like a switch had been flipped. She started coming home late, her arms full of shopping bags, designer labels, the kind we'd only ever seen in magazines at the library. "Got a bonus," she mumbled when I asked, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She'd snap at her boys, Tommy and Ben, for the smallest thing spilled cereal, a toy left on the floor when she used to just laugh it off. One night, I caught her whispering on the phone in the backyard, her voice low and urgent. "Yeah, it's done. I'm set now," she said, glancing over her shoulder like I was a stranger in my own home. I stood by the window, my coffee going cold, watching her pace under the oak tree we'd planted when she was 10. Who was she talking to? And why did it feel like she was slipping away? Then came the Instagram posts. Claire, who'd barely posted a photo since her divorce, was suddenly everywhere online. Pictures of her in a sleek black dress, posing by a convertible on St. George Street, captioned, "New life, new me." Another of her sipping wine at a rooftop bar in Jacksonville, with a guy Jack, her new boyfriend, all slick hair and smug grins, barely older than her own son. "Living the dream," she wrote. And I felt a pang in my chest, not just for her absence, but for the way she was erasing me. She stopped letting me take the boys to the park, saying, "They're fine, Mom. I've got a nanny now." A nanny? I'd been the one wiping their tears, packing their lunches, reading them bedtime stories while she chased dead-end jobs. Now, suddenly, I was unnecessary. The final blow came a week later. I was folding laundry in the living room when Claire burst in, her face lit with a manic glow. "Mom, you won't believe this," she said, holding up a check, her hands trembling with glee. "I won $10 million. I freaking won." My stomach dropped. I knew that ticket wasn't hers. She never carried cash, hated waiting in line at Tom's, always complained about the creepy clerk. But there she stood, claiming my ticket, my numbers, my hope. I forced a smile, my throat tight. "That's incredible, honey," I said, but my voice cracked. She didn't notice. She hugged me, too quick, too shallow, and started babbling about a beachfront mansion, a new car, a life where she'd never worry again. Never worry. Not about me, not about her boys, not about the truth. That night, I lay awake, the hum of the ocean outside my window drowned out by the storm in my head. Claire had taken my ticket, pinned under that star magnet, and claimed it as her own. I remembered buying it Monday, after picking up milk and bread, the clerk joking about my lucky numbers. I'd signed it, Margaret Thompson, in my shaky cursive, and stuck it on the fridge like always. Claire hadn't just taken a piece of paper, she'd stolen a piece of me. And yet, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I couldn't bear to see her lie to my face. Instead, I watched her pack her things, her boys' toys, her life, and move out without a word. The next morning, our cottage was silent, the kitchen table empty except for a single coffee mug mine. Claire was gone, chasing a life built on my loss, and I was left with nothing but a chipped magnet and a truth she'd never suspect. The silence in our St. Augustine cottage was deafening after Claire left, her boys' laughter no longer bouncing off the walls. I stood in the kitchen, staring at that star-shaped magnet on the fridge, its chipped edges a cruel reminder of the ticket she'd stolen. I'd spent days convincing myself it was a mistake, that Claire wouldn't betray me like that. But reality crashed down like the Atlantic waves during a hurricane. 2 weeks after she moved out, I got a call from her sharp, impatient, like I was an errand she'd forgotten. "Mom, pack a bag. I need you to come stay with the boys for a bit," she said. Her voice clipped. I thought maybe she was softening, that she needed me again. So I packed my old suitcase, the one with the frayed handle, and drove the 3 miles to her new beachfront mansion, its glass walls gleaming under the Florida sun like a trophy she hadn't earned. When I arrived, the house was a world apart from our cramped cottage. Marble floors stretched endlessly, chandeliers glittered like stars, and the ocean view sparkled through floor-to-ceiling windows. But the air felt cold, not from the AC, but from Claire's eyes as she greeted me at the door. Jack, her new boyfriend, lounged on a leather couch, smirking like he owned the place. "The boys are upstairs," Claire said, barely looking at me. Just keep them quiet. I've got a party tonight. I nodded, clutching the sweater I'd knitted for her 20th birthday. Its blue yarn faded but still soft. I climbed the spiral staircase, my knees aching, and found Tommy and Ben playing video games, their faces lit by screens. "Grandma!" Ben squealed, hugging me. But Tommy, older and quieter, just glanced up, his eyes distant, like he'd already learned to guard his heart. That night, the house pulsed with music, laughter, and clinking glasses from Claire's party. I stayed upstairs, reading to Ben until he fell asleep, his small hand curled in mine. But around midnight, the storm hit, not just the rain lashing the windows, but Claire's voice, shrill and furious, cutting through the noise. "Mom, get down here!" she shouted. I hurried downstairs, my heart pounding, to find her standing in the foyer, her face twisted with rage. Jack stood behind her, arms crossed, his smirk sharper now. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice trembling. Claire's eyes blazed. "You're embarrassing me," she spat. "My friends saw you in that ratty sweater, acting like you belong here. You're a parasite, Mom, always clinging, always taking." Her words hit like a slap, each one tearing at the scars I'd carried from years of giving her everything: my savings, my time, my dreams. Before I could speak, she grabbed my suitcase from the corner, where I'd left it by the door, and threw it outside into the rain-soaked driveway. The zipper burst, spilling my clothes, socks, an old blouse, that blue sweater into the mud. Lightning flashed, illuminating the mess of my life scattered across her perfect pavement. "Get out!" Claire screamed, her voice a venomous hiss. "You're nothing but a burden. I don't need you anymore." I stood frozen, rain soaking my hair, my heart shattering as I saw Tommy peek from the upstairs window, his small face pale and confused. I wanted to run to him, to shield him from this, but Claire's words pinned me in place. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the cops," she threatened, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. I knelt in the mud, gathering my belongings, my fingers trembling as rain mixed with tears. The sweater, that symbol of love I'd poured into every stitch, was torn, its threads unraveling in the storm. I looked back at the mansion, its lights blinding, and saw Claire's silhouette turn away, as if I were already gone. My grandsons were inside, but I couldn't reach them, not tonight, maybe not ever. The pain wasn't just her betrayal. It was the sight of Tommy's eyes, watching his grandma be discarded like trash. Every sacrifice I'd made: $5,000 for her car loan, nights spent sewing Halloween costumes, years of putting her first burn to nothing in that moment. Yet, as I clutched the soaked sweater, a spark of defiance flickered in my chest. Claire thought she'd won, thought she'd buried me, but she'd forgotten one thing. The ticket she'd stolen, the one she'd built this lie on, had my name on it. And I wasn't done fighting. The rain had stopped, but the ache in my chest lingered, as raw as the St. Augustine mud still caked on my shoes. After Claire threw me out, I drove back to my cottage, the 3-mile journey a blur of headlights and heartbreak. My torn sweater lay crumpled in the back seat, a relic of a love that no longer existed. But in the quiet of my kitchen, with only the hum of the fridge and that star-shaped magnet staring back, something shifted. The pain didn't break me, it sharpened me. I wasn't the Maggie Thompson who'd let Claire's betrayal bury her. I was the woman who'd signed that $10 million lottery ticket, and I was done being silent. I remembered that Monday, at Tom's corner store, clear as day. I'd stood in line, juggling a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread, the clerk chuckling as I fumbled for $2. "Quick pick, Maggie?" he'd asked. I nodded, scribbling Margaret Thompson on the ticket's back with a pen from my purse, then pinning it to the fridge like always. That ticket wasn't Claire's. She never carried cash, never waited in line. But she'd taken it, and with it, my trust. I rummaged through my purse, my fingers brushing past crumpled receipts until I found it. The grocery receipt from that day, time-stamped 3:47 p.m., listing lottery ticket, $2. My heart raced. This was proof. A lifeline. I drove back to Tom's the next morning, the Florida sun glaring off the asphalt. Tom, with his gray beard and kind eyes, looked up from the counter. "Maggie, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. "Tom, I need to see the security footage from last Monday. The ticket I bought, it's gone, and I think Claire took it." His eyes widened, but he didn't hesitate. "That $10 million ticket? Holy, come on back." In his cramped office, the grainy footage played on a small screen. There I was, in my faded cardigan, signing the ticket, slipping it into my purse. I pulled out my phone and recorded it, every pixel a nail in Claire's lie. "Can you send me a copy?" I asked. Tom nodded, his face grim. "You do what you gotta do, Maggie." Back home, I sat at the kitchen table, the receipt and my phone beside me. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for my dignity. I called Susan Carter, a lawyer Linda, my neighbor, had recommended after her own legal battle. Susan's office was a small storefront downtown, its walls lined with law books and a single potted plant. She listened as I laid out everything. The ticket, the footage, Claire's betrayal. "You signed it?" Susan asked, adjusting her glasses. I nodded, sliding the receipt across her desk. "And I've got proof I bought it." She reviewed the video, her lips pursed. "This is theft, Maggie. Not just fraud. We can challenge the payout." My breath caught. "Can you freeze her accounts?" Susan's eyes met mine, steady and sure. "Once we file with the State Lottery Commission, yes." That afternoon, we sent everything: receipt, video, a photo I'd taken of the ticket on my fridge, its numbers blurry but legible. The lottery office responded within hours. "We're opening an investigation. If your signature holds, the payout is yours." I didn't smile, didn't cry. I just sat in my cottage, the ocean's whisper seeping through the cracked window, and felt a weight lift, not all of it, but enough. Claire was out there, posting selfies from her mansion, sipping martinis with Jack, thinking she'd won. But she'd made one fatal mistake. She never checked the name on the ticket. And while she danced in her stolen spotlight, I was building a case that would unravel her world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I thought of Claire's boys, Tommy and Ben, their faces in that mansion window, unaware of the storm coming. I wasn't just fighting for me, I was fighting for them, for the truth they deserved. Claire's empire of lies was about to crumble. And I'd be there when it did. Not with anger, but with the quiet strength of a mother who'd given everything and refused to be erased. The St. Augustine sunrise painted my cottage walls in hues of coral and gold, but the warmth couldn't touch the resolve hardening in my chest. I'd sent the proof to the State Lottery Commission: receipt, security footage, that blurry photo of my signed ticket, and they'd acted faster than I'd dared hope. Claire's world, built on my stolen $10 million, was unraveling. I didn't need to check her Instagram to know it. The silence on her end was louder than any post. 3 days after Susan filed the claim, the news came through. Claire's accounts were frozen, her beachfront mansion's title locked in a legal stranglehold, and her shiny convertible flagged as a disputed asset. The Florida sun kept shining, but for Claire, the storm was just beginning. I was brewing coffee in my kitchen, the familiar drip-drip a small comfort, when Linda, my neighbor, called. "Maggie, you hear about Claire?" Her voice was a mix of shock and gossip. She tried buying a $500 scarf at that fancy boutique on St. George Street. Card declined 3 times. She screamed about bank errors, but everyone's talking. They're saying she's a fraud. I gripped the mug, my knuckles white, picturing Claire's manicured nails fumbling with her phone, her face flushed with panic. "Thanks, Linda," I said, keeping my voice even. I didn't need to gloat. The truth was doing that for me. That evening, as the ocean waves crashed a half-mile away, a frantic knock rattled my front door. I knew it was her before I even looked. Through the peephole, I saw Claire, her designer dress replaced by a wrinkled sweatshirt, her makeup smudged like she'd been crying for hours. No Jack, no entourage, just her, alone, her hair tangled like the girl I used to braid it for. I opened the door an inch, my heart pounding but my face a mask of calm. "Mom," she gasped, her voice raw. "We need to talk." I didn't move. "There's nothing to say, Claire." Her eyes widened, desperate, but still sharp with that familiar edge of blame. "You did this, didn't you? Froze my accounts, took everything. You're ruining my life." Her words stung, but I'd heard worse in that rain-soaked driveway. "You ruined your own life," I said, my voice low, cutting through her panic like a blade. "You took my ticket, Claire. You saw my name on it and still claimed it." She shook her head, frantic. "I didn't know it was yours. I thought it was mine, I swear." But her eyes betrayed her, darting to the side like they always did when she lied. "You didn't check," I said, stepping closer, my voice steady as stone. "You didn't care. You saw a chance and ran, leaving me in the mud with nothing but a torn sweater." Her mouth opened, then closed, her hands twisting the hem of her sweatshirt. "Okay, fine," she spat, her tone shifting to desperation. "I messed up. But you've got the money now, right? Can't we fix this? For Tommy and Ben?" The mention of my grandsons pierced me, but I saw her game. She wasn't sorry, she was scared. Scared of the mansion she'd lose, the friends who'd already vanished, the headlines branding her a thief. "You didn't just steal $10 million, I said, my eyes locked on hers. "You stole my trust, my love, my years of giving you everything. You called me a parasite, Claire. You don't get to beg now." Her face crumpled, tears spilling. "But they weren't for me. They were for her crumbling empire." "Please, Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I've got nothing left. The house, the car, my friends, they're gone. Help me." I let the silence stretch, the ocean's roar filling the space between us. I thought of Tommy and Ben, their small faces in that mansion window, and my heart ached. But Claire wasn't their savior, she'd abandoned them in her chase for glory. "Goodbye," I said, my voice soft but unyielding, and started to close the door. "You can't do this," she shrieked, pounding the wood. "You're my mother." I paused, my hand on the knob. "I was," I said, "until you made me nothing." The door clicked shut, her cries muffled by the thick wood, and for the first time I felt no guilt, just clarity. As I turned away, the phone rang, Susan's name flashing on the screen. The lottery commission had finalized their ruling. The payout was mine, every cent. Claire's name was erased from the claim, her lies exposed to the world. I sat at my kitchen table, the star magnet glinting on the fridge, and let the truth settle over me like a warm blanket. But Claire's fall wasn't the end. The world was watching now, and her reckoning was only beginning. The door's final click as I shut Claire out echoed in my St. Augustine cottage, a sound sharper than the ocean's waves crashing a half-mile away. I didn't need to see her face to know her world was collapsing. The truth, like the relentless Florida tide, had swept away her lies. The state lottery commission's ruling was final. The $10 million was mine. My signature on that ticket, an unbreakable claim. Claire's accounts, once swollen with stolen wealth, were now frozen, her beachfront mansion sealed with yellow tape, its glass walls reflecting nothing but her defeat. I didn't need to gloat or chase gossip, the news found me, carried on the lips of neighbors and the pages of the St. Augustine Record. Linda, my neighbor, stopped by the next morning, her eyes wide over a thermos of coffee. "Maggie, it's all over town," she said, leaning against my porch railing. "They're calling Claire the lottery liar in the paper. Said she tried to sell that fancy car of hers, but it's tied up in the legal mess. Nobody's seen her since yesterday." I nodded, stirring my tea, the steam curling like a ghost of my old hopes. I pictured Claire, her manicured nails clawing at a phone screen flashing, "Declined." Her smug boyfriend Jack nowhere in sight. He'd vanished, of course, the moment her money did. The Record ran a front-page story. Local woman's $10 million claim exposed as fraud. The article didn't mention me by name, not yet, but it detailed Claire's fall, from her Instagram boasts to the eviction notice pinned to her mansion's door. Friends who'd flocked to her parties, sipping her wine and praising her rags to riches tale, had turned their backs, their comments now venomous. Thief. Liar. Good riddance. I drove past her mansion that afternoon, not out of spite, but because I needed to see it. The once gleaming estate looked hollow, its windows dark, the for sale sign swaying in the breeze. A moving truck idled nearby, two men tossing Claire's designer furniture onto the curb like it was yard sale junk. I slowed my car, my heart catching at the sight of Tommy's bike, abandoned by the mailbox, its training wheels bent. My grandsons, Tommy and Ben, weren't there. Claire had sent them to her ex-husband's, a man who'd barely called in years. She'd lost more than money. She'd lost them too. Her neglect laid bare in court documents Susan had shared. The state had questioned her fitness as a mother, citing her reckless spending and absence. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, not with anger but with a hollow ache for those boys, caught in their mother's wreckage. Claire's social media, once a shrine to her newfound wealth, went silent. No more photos of rooftop bars or diamond necklaces. Her last post, a shaky video from the night before, showed her ranting about betrayal and lies, her voice slurred, her eyes wild. "You don't know the whole story," she'd cried, but the comments tore her apart. "Give it up, Claire. You stole from your own mom." "I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't need to." The truth had done its work, stripping her bare, leaving her to face a town that now saw her for what she was. Linda told me Claire had been spotted at a gas station off A1 Ampere, trying to pawn a $2,000 handbag for gas money. The clerk refused, and she'd left in tears, her convertible repossessed. Her pride shattered. I sat on my porch that evening, the ocean's salt air mingling with the scent of my lavender bushes. I didn't feel triumph. Not really, just a quiet resolve. Claire had built her castle on my signature, and now it was rubble. She'd left St. Augustine, Linda said. Maybe to Jacksonville. Maybe farther. No one knew. I didn't chase her. I'd spent too many years running after her dreams, only to be cast aside. The truth had caught her, and I was free not from love, but from her lies. As the stars emerged over the Atlantic, I thought of what came next. The money was mine, but it wasn't about the dollars. It was about reclaiming my worth, my voice. Susan's voice crackled through my phone, promising a press conference to set the record straight. I wasn't ready to face the cameras, not yet, but I knew what I wanted to say. The world needed to hear my story, not for revenge, but for the women like me, invisible until they refused to be. The St. Augustine night settled over my cottage like a soft blanket, the ocean's rhythmic hum a half-mile away, blending with the creak of my porch swing. I sat there, a chipped mug of chamomile tea in my hands, the steam curling upward like a prayer I no longer needed to whisper. Claire's fall was complete, her mansion empty, her name a whisper of scandal in the St. Augustine record, her life scattered like the debris of my suitcase in that rain-soaked driveway. But as I stared at the stars glinting over the Atlantic, I didn't feel the weight of her betrayal anymore. I felt light, unburdened, like I'd shed a skin I'd worn too long. The $10 million was mine, secured by my signature, by the truth I'd fought for. Yet, it wasn't the money that made my heart steady. It was the woman I'd become in its shadow. For years, I'd measured my worth by what I gave Claire. I'd sold my mother's pearl necklace to cover her $3,000 credit card debt, skipped doctor visits to pay for Tommy's braces, spent nights sewing Ben's Halloween costumes, while Claire chased dreams that never landed. I thought love meant sacrifice, that being a mother meant pouring myself out until there was nothing left. But sitting on that swing, the Florida breeze tugging at my gray hair, I saw it clearly. Love doesn't demand your erasure. I'd been Claire's anchor, her safety net, her silent partner, but I'd forgotten to be Maggie Thompson, not the widow who shelved books at the library for $12 an hour, not the grandmother who packed lunches, but the woman who dreamed of a porch swing overlooking the ocean, who laughed at Tom's bad jokes at the corner store, who signed her name on a ticket and dared to hope. I walked inside, my bare feet cool against the worn hardwood, and opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside was a photo from 1987. Me and Claire on St. Augustine Beach, her tiny hand clutching a seashell. My smile wide and unscarred. I'd thought loving her meant holding on, even when she pushed me away. But now, I understood. Letting go was my freedom. The money wasn't my victory, it was a tool. I'd already called Susan, my lawyer, to set up a trust. $2 million for a scholarship fund for single mothers in St. Johns County. Women like I'd been, scraping by, invisible, but fierce. I wanted them to know their worth didn't lie in what they gave away. The rest, I'd use to live not lavishly, but fully. Maybe I'd buy that Key West condo I'd dreamed of, or just a new swing for this porch. The choice was mine, and that was enough. I thought of Tommy and Ben, their faces haunting me from that mansion window. I'd fight for them, not with Claire's permission, but through the courts if I had to. They deserved a grandmother who showed them love wasn't a transaction. Claire had called me a parasite, but she'd never seen the strength it took to carry her through her failures. $5,000 for her car. Years of my retirement savings. My own dreams deferred. She'd built her empire on my sacrifice, and when it crumbled, she'd blamed me. But I wasn't her shadow anymore. I was Maggie, standing tall, my name on that ticket a testament to a truth she couldn't steal. As the moon rose, casting silver across my yard, I felt a peace I hadn't known in decades. Dignity doesn't beg, I realized it demands. It stands firm, even when the world calls you worthless. I'd spent years cushioning Claire's blows, but now I was done softening her edges. The press conference Susan had scheduled loomed, a chance to tell my story, not for revenge, but to show women like me, mothers, grandmothers, the ones who give too much that their voices matter. I wasn't just reclaiming $10 million, I was reclaiming myself. And as I stepped back onto the porch, the ocean's song louder now, I knew the world was waiting to hear what Maggie Thompson had to say. The St. Augustine dawn broke over the horizon, painting the Atlantic in strokes of pink and gold, as I, Maggie Thompson, stood on the sandy shore a half-mile from my cottage. The ocean's whisper had always been my solace, but today, it felt like a promise, a new beginning after the storm of Claire's betrayal. The $10 million was mine, not just in dollars but in the truth I'd fought for, the dignity I'd reclaimed. Standing there, my bare feet sinking into the cool sand, I realized the greatest lesson wasn't about the money. It was about knowing your worth, even when those closest to you try to erase it. For years I'd let Claire define me as a mother, a grandmother, a giver who never asked for anything back. I'd paid her $5,000 car loan, sewn costumes for Tommy and Ben, and shelved my dreams to lift hers. But love doesn't mean losing yourself. To every woman out there, every mother or grandmother who's given too much, set boundaries, protect your truth, and never let anyone dim your light. You're not too old to stand tall, to claim what's yours, to walk away from those who call you worthless. As the waves lapped at my toes, I thought of what lay ahead. The trust for single mothers was set. $2 million to help women like I'd been, struggling but strong. Maybe I'd visit Key West, sit on that dream porch swing, or just stay here, watching the tides with Tommy and Ben by my side, if the courts allowed. My story wasn't over, it was just beginning. What would I do with the money, with this new Maggie? That's a tale for another day, one I'd write on my own terms. If my journey moved you, please leave a like, drop a comment with your thoughts, or subscribe to the Unwanted Revenge for more stories of truth and triumph. Your support means the world to women like me, finding our voices in the quiet. As the sun climbed higher, I turned from the ocean, my shadow stretching long across the sand, ready to face the press conference Susan had planned, to tell the world not just what I'd won, but who I'd become.